You're online at the Feel Good Station. Your first stop for feel good music, feel good chat, and much, much more.
The Cellar of Horrors.
Monstrosity of all time.
Greetings folks and welcome to another fun-filled and exciting episode of the Cellar of Horrors on the Feel Good Station. I'm your host Tim Mendes, joined as ever by my little spidery sidekick Septimus. Yeah, we got a good one lined up for you again this week. In the first hour I'll be joined by Mr. Peach aka Dan and Zoe Pheonix from the band Lesbian Bed Death, and in the second hour I'll be joined by Mr. Jonathan Inbody, who is the writer, director, producer, all-round creator of Grey Matter, which is a podcast which features adaptations of classic horror and weird fiction. It's in a hybrid style, so you get partially narrated and part full cast audio drama. It's really, really cool. So yeah, I'm looking forward to chatting to him about that. Speaking of being inspired by classic horror, the song you heard to lead us in was an absolutely great track by the mighty Gothzilla. The song was called One of Us, and it's taken from their 2020 album Auras, and it was inspired by the 1932 horror movie Freaks. Yeah, you may have, anybody familiar with that will have recognised the One of Us and the Gooble Gobble Gooble Gobble. The first time I heard it, I was actually in the bath. Now, I've got a speaker set up in the bathroom. I've got a speaker set up all over the Cellar of Horrors. And I was just lying in the bath, and that sort of creepy carnival intro thing had gone on. It was longer than I played because obviously time constraints. But and I was just sort of sitting there going, yeah, this is quite creepy, And then it kicked in with the Gooble Gobbles, and I was like, oh, I see what you did there. It's absolutely brilliant. Yeah, Septimus loves it. We actually had Tim Jarvis from Gothzilla on the show the other week, a couple of weeks ago, I believe. It's now up on Mixcloud, as are all previous episodes of the Cellar of Horrors. All you have to do is go on Mixcloud and search Tim Mendes, and it'll come up with all the previous episodes of the Cellar of Horrors for your listening pleasure. Yeah, again, that was One of Us by Gothzilla. What are you giggling about? What are you giggling about the song? Well, what are you giggling about? Septimus, that's quite disturbing. There's nothing more disturbing than a whacking great black and red spider sitting on your desk giggling like a loon. What's tickled you? Oh, your tune. Oh, okay. What have you done? I'm concerned now, Septimus. What have you done? Nothing. Okay, that always means you've done something. Right, come on then, let's get on with it. Let's have this week's Septimus's Synth Classic. What have you got for us then, my friend? Oh yeah, nice. Nice. Okay, yeah, we'll lead in with that then into the rest of the show. Kicking off in fine style with an absolute synth pop classic, we're going with Never Trust a Klingon by Spock.
You're online at the Feel Good Station.
Great stuff there. Nice choice, Septimus. The first song there was Septimus's choice, but was Never Trust a Klingon, by a band who most people call them Spock because their name is Spock, but they actually stands for Star Pilot on Channel K. Yeah, I think it was just an excuse to get their name to be Spock, because most of their stuff, especially early on, was all inspired by Star Trek. You had songs like Dr. McCoy, and obviously that one, Never Trust a Klingon. Their later stuff, they went into other sci-fi territories, but it's all sci-fi inspired. It's great stuff. I'm surprised. I'll go to a lot of these sci-fi and fantasy conventions, in my capacity as an author, and they tend to have like filk sessions, folk singers singing about like sci-fi stuff. It's quite fun, but I've always thought, why don't they book Spock? That'd be absolutely brilliant, for the evening, instead of like because they often have these discos, right? And it's a bit like being back at school. You're crammed into this a conference hall. They're usually conference centres, these kind of things. And they're usually in one of these rooms that they usually have meetings and PowerPoint presentations in, right? So it has a bit of a school disco vibe. So yeah, it'd be great if you get Spock come out in their sparkly silver suits playing songs like Never Trust a Klingon. This is why I should book things, Well, maybe not. The song you heard after that was a great little track called Drug Bitter Pill by Nox Novacula, who are a band from Seattle, Washington. They've been going since, I think, somewhere around like 2017, somewhere around that time. I wasn't actually familiar with them until I'd on Facebook, right? There was like a live stream gig thing, festival, and it had a lot of like bands I'd never heard of, so I thought, I was dipping in and out of it all night. Nox Novacula were one of the ones that really, really stood out to me. Really great stuff, really enjoyed it. That was from their album Ascension, which released in 2021. Okay, moving on, we're going to play you the brand spanking new track from our old friends The Vaulted Skies. Again, James Scott from the band appeared on our second ever episode, which you can find on Mixcloud. They played recently up in Bedford, and I was really trying to go, but work got in the way, and, it just didn't happen on the day. It was a real shame. But, they've just put out a new song called Hollowhead, which is available now on Bandcamp. So, I'm just going to give that a spin. Enjoy.
You're online at the Feel Good Station.
You're listening to the Cellar of Horrors on the Feel Good Station. Two absolutely quality tracks there. The first one you heard was the brand new single from The Vaulted Skies. That was Hollow Head, and that's available for download now on Bandcamp. Following that, you heard an absolute banger by the band Then Comes Silence. It's from their 2017 album Blood, and it's called Strange Kicks. It's one of those tracks. Now, the funny thing is, when you DJ in clubs and things like that, any other DJ can attest to this. Sometimes, if you play a newer track, 9 times out of 10, you'll clear the dance floor, because a lot of people will only dance to things they actually know. Now, the interesting thing, there's certain exceptions to that rule. There's always exceptions to that rule, and it's just a case of finding them. Now, you see, one of those tracks is that one, Strange Kicks by Then Comes Silence. I could slip that in between Susie, the Sisters, anything, really. I could slip that in anywhere in the set, and people will still dance to it, which is the testament to how good a track it is, in my opinion. Yeah, it's fairly rare that the first time you play something, people will dance to it. It usually takes a few times of it being spun and people learning it and recognising it before people will actually get off their backsides and boogie. But that one, it was an instant classic, and I still play it in my sets to this day. Right, we're heading to that point in the evening where we're going to be joined by our first guests. We're going to be joined by Zoe Pheonix and Mr. Peach from Lesbian Bed Death, a band I went to see not long ago, and it's one of the reasons my voice is still a bit croaky at the moment, is because I always end up getting a lurgy when I go to London. I don't know what it is, whether it's the underground or whatever, but my voice always gets wrecked, and it's been like this for about 3 weeks now. It's ridiculous. But yeah, they put on an absolutely superb show. It was a sort of little venue in the back end of nowhere in Seven Sisters, but it was a really good night, absolutely superb night. One of the things that always appealed to me about Lesbian Bed Death were their subjects. A lot of their songs are inspired by horror movies and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, as you can imagine, it sort of shoots me in the heart with the lyrics, you know what I mean? So what we're going to do before we go to the interview, I'm going to play you one of my favourite soundtrack songs. It's actually I was going to say it's a more recent one, but I don't know whether you'd call 1999 recent. It's one of those things, isn't it? Like, I still see the 90s as yesterday. It's just ridiculous, the march of time. But anyway, yeah, this is from 1999's Stigmata. And it's by a band who most people will remember from that god-awful hit they had in the 90s. He drinks a whiskey drink, he drinks a lager drink. It was terrible, and it was everywhere. It drove me insane. But anyway, yeah, the band is Chumbawamba, but they did this, which is absolutely superb, a quality bit of industrial. The song is called Mary Mary, and this is the Stigmatic mix.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Good Station, taking you to the best shows.
You're listening to the Cellar of Horrors on the Feel Good Station. The first track you heard there was Chumbawamba with Mary Mary Stigmatic Mix from the 1999 Stigmata soundtrack, which is a great film. It's one of those films that people seem to have forgotten, but I really liked that. It's one of my favourite of the sort of religious horror kind of films. It was really good film. That was followed by a song by my first guests of the evening. That was Lesbian Bed Death with Witching Hour, which is the title track of their latest album. Okay, I'm with Zoe, Pheonix and Dan from the band Lesbian Bed Death. How are you doing, guys?
Good, thanks.
Yeah, great, thank you.
Thanks for coming on the show. You're fresh off a headline UK tour at the moment. I was lucky enough to catch you up in London. It was a great show. How did it go on the whole then, the tour?
Well, it's not quite finished yet.
Oh, it's not?
We've got a couple more days.
Oh, do you? All right.
I think it's been really good. I'm very
yeah,
happy.
It's been... We've just constantly laughed and played music and had fun, haven't we? It's just been amazing. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah,
people actually turned up as well at some of the shows. So bonus.
You sound so shocked.
A lot of bands who have had on over like post-lockdown have said the same thing, that the attendances have been a lot less. I mean, so how long have you been going now as a band?
This lineup, about a year.
Yeah, just over a year.
Yeah. The band itself started as my side project in 2004. First album was 2006.
So it was a side project, you say?
Initially, yeah.
What was the other band you were doing?
I used to be in like a hardcore punk band called Razorwire, and that sort of fizzled out 2008, 2009. And I found that everyone wanted Lesbian Bed Death, so it kind of became my main thing.
Oh, excellent. So what was the thought behind it, starting it off?
Basically, I kind of grew up with a lot of glam and goth bands, sort of late 80s, early 90s, and I wanted to do something that kind of paid tribute to that. I got to be a little bit silly, a bit over the top, pretend to be a massive rock star. So it's like sort of Kiss meets the Sisters of Mercy with the Misfits thrown in and kind of mixed up. Something that also reflected my obsession of the Return of the Living Dead soundtrack. So yeah,
Nice.
I was also obsessed with the 69 Eyes as well at the time.
Nice. Well, it's funny. It's funny you say that, because I could see that in the music. Because I would have said it was like you've got bits of that sort of glam rock and the sort of hair metal sort of stuff, and then the goth bit, and then the horror punk thing. Because you did a cover of Party Time, didn't you?
We did.
Yes, that was on your Born to Die on VHS album, which I love, by the way, because it's all the stuff that I grew up watching. It's all, so was that the whole point behind that album, just to take all them tracks from them old slasher movies and sort of do something with it?
Yeah, I mean, I love a lot of the songs from certain horror films, and I just wanted to do like a covers album and choose my favourites. We had about 32, I think.
Blimey.
So we had to slash that down quite a lot to 10. I think we did 10. I can't even remember how many we did now. But yeah, it was difficult. I'm quite pleased with how it turned out. All the obvious films are kind of have songs from down there.
Yeah.
Like Return of the Living Dead, Critters, Fright Night, Lost Boys.
Yeah, because there was stuff on there like the Dream Warriors from my favourite entry into the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. Yeah. It's a great little album. So Zoe, how did you sort of get involved? You say you've been there about a year now.
Yeah, so I used to be in a band in my hometown, and then because of COVID and everything, it's kind of like we didn't do anything, not even over Zoom or anything, so it just kind of fizzled out. So I wasn't doing anything, and then Dan needed a new singer, and I've gigged with a few bands, so obviously he's kind of heard of me, and he's seen me on Instagram, and he's kind of gone, "You're a bit good fit so for the band." So he messaged me and was like, "Do you want to audition?" And I looked them up, and instantly, because I was living at home at the time, and I said to my mum, I was like, "These guys are really, really cool." And she went, "You've got to do it. You've got to." And from my first audition, I just fell in love with the band. I was just, thanks to social media, really, because if it weren't for social media, Dan wouldn't have really been able to get in contact or anything. So I was quite lucky. I'm still glad to this day, because when I got a message saying you audition for a band, the young female in me was like, who's this? And then I looked at him and I'm like, this guy's badass, as is his band. So I was like, it's legit. It's definitely legit. And I haven't looked back. It's been the best year of my life.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, no, because I would say when I saw you live, you could see how much fun you were having because that comes across to the audience. If the band's having a good time, you know, generally you're having a good time, you know. Because I've been at gigs when it's obviously been a bit like pulling teeth. You know, you can see that there's friction between the bands going on up there, which can be quite entertaining. But you generally, but you guys seem to be having such a great time, which I thought really come across. So you've just released a new single, very recently, didn't you? We're going to play that now. Would you like to tell us a little bit about it then?
Yeah, sure. Well, obviously, Dan actually wrote the lyrics and stuff for this one. And when he first played it to me, I was like, this is a bit of a foot tapper. This is going to be so much fun. And I've just fallen in love with the song. And he said it's going to be the first single. And when we did the video, the more times I had to listen to it a lot because I had to sing along to it. And we're making the video. And the more we did it, I never got tired of it. I just enjoyed it more and more and more. Doing like a single with Lesbian Bed Death where there has been previous singers, it was just amazing to put my own stamp on things, and the guys let me have my own freedom with how I could sing it. And the recording of the video and the song itself was just amazing. I loved every second of it.
Yeah, it's a really fun video. Yeah, and so what we're going to do now, we're going to play that. This is Antichrist by Lesbian Bed Death.
We start
Okay, we're back with Lesbian Bed Death. That's just come out fairly recently, and like you were saying, you were on tour, and you're kind of still on tour. When are the dates you've got coming up?
Saturday, the 19th of November, is the Corporation of Sheffield.
Nice venue.
I think it's Saturday, 3rd of December is Keighley, isn't it? The Exchange.
Yeah, that's my hometown, so that's going to be like a big show on my end.
Nice. So you're going to have your family turn up?
Oh yeah, we've got quite a few people who want to come, and last time I played there was with my old band, and this was pre-COVID, and it wasn't that busy as when now, by the sounds of it, loads of people are like, oh my God, we want to see this, and people are buying tickets, so that's going to be fun.
Nice. It'll probably be nerve-wracking as well. I've had that when you're on stage and you look out and it's like your mum's turned up or something. It's quite terrifying.
My mum's been to a few shows, and she makes her presence known. She's a riot. She's an absolute laugh. Nice. She just stands there and goes, "That's my Zoe." Excellent.
Yeah. So, what have you got plans coming up after that? Are you going to be doing a full album?
Yeah.
Yes. Nice.
Yeah, may as well let the cat out of the bag right now. Well, I've been doing a lot of writing over the last few weeks. Yeah. I've got a lot of stuff to bring to the table to show the rest of the band and see what everyone likes and wants to work on. I think we've got about 10 songs in the bag, roughly. Nice. But I kind of wanted to do a few more and just see how it all kind of fits together. Because we're quite diverse with the stuff we do, so I want to make sure it's a cohesive LBD record, and we haven't strayed too far from that. With some of the songs a bit more metal than before, so I need to make sure that I can kind of make them fit with LBD.
So I take it that you are like the main songwriter and
co-writer.
Right.
I wouldn't say you're main.
Yeah.
Well, my head's not that big yet.
Right. You've not assumed full control yet.
No, you're pretty relaxed with that, Dan. Like, you can tell when Dan writes them because they're really, really fun, and the lyrics are always really horror themed. But when I write stuff, so if they're writing anything really heavy, Dan, I'm like, you can put some angry and punchy in there, because as happy as I look on stage, apparently my songwriting comes across as very angry and angsty. So if we have anything heavy, Dan's like, I've had it.
Nice, I love it. Yeah, that's one thing that I first fell in love with LBD was the lyrics, because obviously I'm a horror writer, and so I'm obsessed with horror in all of its various forms. And I'm just like, oh, I get that reference. I like that. I get that reference, and I get that reference. And I think you have some really incredibly fun songs. Like, one of my personal favorites is the one you did about Chucky.
the one we imagined to be called Chucky.
Yeah. I was just like, because I got the album and I had it on in the background while I was doing something, and the line, he's like, he's 2 foot, he's from the 80s, he's 2 foot tall, and he's ready to kill. I was just like, hang on a minute. I see what you did there.
The horror songs are fantastic. Like, when I first listened to LBD, I put The Scorpion on because that was the latest single at the time. But then obviously a playlist comes up on YouTube, and Designed by the Devil came up, and I love 13 Ghosts. It's one of my, it's in my top 3 horror films.
Nice.
And I just remember bouncing up and down like, this is so cool to be able to sing a song about one of my favorite horror films. And it's definitely still one of my favorite songs to do live as well as.
That's it. I think the main thing, like the horror lyrics and all the rest of it, it's just entertaining. It's just really fun. And thanks for coming on, guys. And I wish you all the best luck. And when you have more gigs coming up, things like that, let me know, and I'll make sure that people hear about it. What we're going to do now is we're going to play us out with the song you mentioned a bunch of times there. We're going to play us out with 45 Grave with Party Time from the Return of the Living Dead soundtrack. Enjoy. Great stuff. That was Party Time by 45 Grave, taken from their 1983 album Sleep in Safety. It was then released in 1985 on the Return of the Living Dead soundtrack, and every time I hear it, I want to go and do a striptease on a gravestone. If you know, you know. Yeah, it's that. It's what most people remember of that movie, isn't it? Trash doing her punk striptease to that very song in a graveyard. Yeah, it's a absolutely brilliant film. Dan O'Brien's first feature film, and yeah, it's a masterpiece of schlocky horror comedy. I just absolutely adore it. It's a great, great film. Thanks again to our guests, Zoe and Dan from Lesbian Bed Death. I was intending to play one of their other tracks, Bela Lugosi's Back, but I simply haven't got time, so what I'll do is I'll play that in the very next show. Yeah, if you want to come on the show, if you want to get in touch, or you have something you want me to play, get in contact with me at cellarofhorrors@gmail.com. That's all lowercase and all one word. That's cellarofhorrors@gmail.com. Just give me a shout, get in touch, drop me a line. I'm on Facebook and... well, I was on Twitter. I'm not really using it at the moment because it's become an absolute nightmare. So yeah, don't expect a response if you get in contact with me on Twitter, because I don't look at it at the minute. The only time I go on Twitter is when I have to do damage limitation because a certain red and black spider has been trolling people again. Yes, you. You're always doing it. You're always getting into flame wars and God knows what else. Right, that's the end of our first hour. Stay tuned for the second, where we'll be joined by Mr. Jonathan Inbody from the Grey Matter podcast. Looking forward to this. Yeah, I actually checked some of it out earlier. It's really good. We'll probably have some more antics from Septimus as well, standard. We'll be talking more horror, and we're playing more tunes. See you in a bit.
You're online at the Feel Good Station. Your first stop for feel good music, feel good chat, and much, much more.
Abuse a monster? Is it a monster? What's that coming over the hill? Is it a monster? Is it a monster? What's that coming over the hill? Is it a monster? Is it a monster?
Welcome back to the Cellar of Horrors on the Feel Good Station. That was this week's improbable cover, and it's by the magnificent Alixandrea Corvyn, who many of you will know as the singer from Last July and is also a member of Rhombus. That's one of her solo works, and there's a cover of... it's one of those songs that everybody knows but nobody knows who it's by. It was by a band called Bowling for Soup, and it's called Monster. And yeah, it was sort of pop-punk, but this version's much better. Far, far superior in my humble opinion. Alexandria is doing a solo set in Black Midwinter 2 Festival, which is up in Sheffield in December. Now, in a couple of weeks, I will be doing a preview show for that, where I'll be playing tracks by as many of the bands on the bill that I can fit. There's a lot on the bill. It's a 3-day festival, so there's a lot of bands to cover there, but I will be doing my best to get them all in. So yeah, welcome to Hour 2. Coming up, we have Jonathan Inbody, and yeah, we're going to play some other tracks. What? Oh dear, I'm worried. Septimus has an idea. What's your idea? Yeah, I've been playing some tracks from horror movies. Oh, that's a good idea, actually. Yeah, Septimus says, why don't we play some more tracks that were featured on soundtracks to horror movies? That's actually a really good idea. Now, do you have anything in mind, being as it's your idea? Oh, now. Yeah, now there's a soundtrack. Now, a lot of people, when you talk about goth soundtracks to movies, everybody mentions like The Crow and Hardware and, you know, all that kind of stuff. But a lot of people seem to forget the soundtrack to Demons 2. That was a really, really good soundtrack, packed with goth rock classics. I mean, Nephilim were on there, Love and Rockets were on there, The Cult were on there, Dead Can Dance were on there. It was an absolutely great soundtrack. But I think I know which one you want, because I know it's one of your favourite tracks. Yeah, I thought so. You can be quite predictable at times, Mr. Spider. Okay, this is Heartache by Gene Loves Jezebel.
You're online at the Feel Good Station.
When the sun goes down and the moon comes up, I turn into a teenage goo-goo muck. Yeah, I cruise through the city and I roam the streets, looking for something that is nice to eat. You better duck when I show up, the goo-goo muck. I'm the ninth-head hunter looking for some head with a way-out body underneath that head. Yeah, I'll get you, baby, with a little luck, 'cause I'm a teenage tiger and a goo-goo muck. You better duck when I show up, the goo-goo muck. Yeah, the city is a jungle and I'm a beast. I'm a teenage tiger looking for a feast. Yeah, I want the most, but I'll take the least, 'cause I'm a goo-goo muck tiger and a teenage beast. You better duck when I show up, the goo-goo muck.
A cracking couple of tunes there following Septimus's bright idea to do some more horror movie soundtrack songs. The first one was from 1986's Demons 2 soundtrack. It was by Ginev's Jezebel and it's called Heartache. It was also released on their 1986 album Discover, which is one of my favourite albums of all time. If you haven't got a copy, go and buy one. It's an absolutely fantastic record. The second track you heard there was Goo Goo Muck by the Cramps, taken from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 soundtrack, which, in my opinion, is one of the best horror movie soundtracks of all time. Now, we've already actually played two of my favourites off that in previous episodes. We played Oingo Boingo's No One Lives Forever and Torch Song's White Night, which are both on that soundtrack. It's a phenomenal soundtrack. Again, try and track it down. I don't know how easy it would be to get hold of a copy these days, but I've still got my vinyl from back in the day. It's a great album. Before we get into another track, we've got time for a cheap plug. The anthologist M. Keaton has just released a new collection of Lovecraftian horror stories, cosmic horror stories, called Strange Eon 2022. Now, I previously appeared in Strange Eon 2020, and I'm pleased to say that I'm in this one as well. I've contributed a Clark Ashton Smith and H.P. Lovecraft inspired story called Transmissions from Vormithadreth, which is a novelette. So yeah, it's packed to the rafters with quality stories in a Lovecraftian vein, from people such as like M. Stern and Miguel Flageur, some other well-known names in there, some really good stuff. That's available now, so track down a copy. Also just came out literally yesterday is a new anthology from Innsmouth Gold, which is the imprint of my friend Rob Poyton, who was on the second show. Again, check it out on Mixcloud. That's Feast of Fools, which is a collection of sword and sorcery tales inspired by people such as Robert E. Howard, Clark Ashton Smith, Carl Edward Wagner, H.P. Lovecraft. Mine's, again, a sort of a Lovecraftian / Smith hybrid, and it's called The Lucky Thief. That's in there. Tomorrow night, on Sunday the 20th of November, we are actually hosting a live launch party on Facebook that is all through my Facebook author page to celebrate the launch of that. I'll be joined by several of the authors. We'll be doing some live readings and live Q&A with the audience. It'll be good fun. I've done a whole bunch of these. They're available on my YouTube channel. They're always a good laugh. It's always great to get a bunch of like-minded authors together to talk tentacle, you know? Right, okay, we're going to crack on and play another tune. I'm going to play you a track from Rob Zombie's remake of Halloween 2. Which wasn't a great movie, but, you know, it had its moments. But anyway, yeah, this is a song by US psychobilly band Captain Clegg and the Night Creatures. It's called Transylvania Terror Train.
Drive, white knuckles on the wheel and the smell of black coal, with 100 miles of track and the wind at your back, with a sleeper car full of dead souls. Fly, death angels, fly from the dining car to the bar, well every neck gets slit when the blood runs and drips from travelers both near and far. On this terror train, this Pennsylvania terror train. Scream, lonely screams as the train screeches to a halt. So that old whistle blows into that haunted depot. Getting on that train was all your fault. On this terror train, this Pennsylvania terror train.
The Feel Good Station, taking you to the best shows.
TV screen is seeped in blood. My walls, my floors are red too.
is that cheating, Septimus? Okay, it's not from a horror movie, but it is from a horror episode of a TV show. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yes, for all you bat-eared listeners out there, yes, that was Nasty by the Damned, which featured on an episode of The Young Ones, where I think it must have gone out around Halloween, because it was sort of like a Halloween special. It was about video nasties, you know, the old video nasty panic in the 80s, Mary Whitehouse and all that. And yeah, I had Alexei Sayle as a vampire, and it was one of the best episodes of The Young Ones. If you haven't seen it, then I don't know what rock you've been living under. You need to go and see it. And it actually had the Damned performing the song on the show. So yeah, it's awesome. Go and watch it. I still stand by that. I stand by that. Get over it, Septimus. Before that, you heard Captain Clegg and the Night Creatures with Transylvania Terror Train from the Halloween 2 soundtrack. Not the original Halloween 2, the Rob Zombie remake. Okay, we're just getting ready for Jonathan Inbody incoming. So, I'm going to play you another couple of tracks while I put Septimus in his box, or give him something to play with. You know, keep him occupied so he doesn't start, like, wrapping web around my guest's face or something, you know, something obnoxious, or, you know what he's like. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play you another personal favourite, which is the cover of Jefferson Aeroplane's White Rabbit by American industrial band Collide. It was featured on the Resident Evil Extinction soundtrack. It was a slightly different version on the soundtrack. It was a slight remix, but I think this version is far superior, in my humble opinion. So here we go. This is the album version of their 2000 album called Ghosts. This Collide with White Rabbit.
You
You're online at the Feel Good Station.
Oh, now we're talking. That was Filter with Hey Man, Nice Shot, which was taken from the soundtrack Tales from the Crypt Demon Night, which is, I don't think anybody's ever watched it. It ain't great, but that song certainly is, and it's actually taken from their debut album, Short Bus. And here's a little bit of grisly trivia for you. It's actually about an American newsreader who blew his brains out live on TV. So there you go. Think happy thoughts. Before that, you heard Collide's cover of Jefferson Aeroplane's White Rabbit from the Resident Evil Extinction soundtrack. Okay, it's time for our second guest of the evening. Right, yes, next on the Cellar of Horrors, we are joined all the way from the States. There's Mr. Jonathan Inbody. How are you doing, matey? How are you doing?
Doing good. I am. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Pleasure. Yeah, it's been a while since we've had a chat, because we've been in...
Yeah, it's been a little bit.
Yeah, because we've been in anthologies together and done video stuff together and things like that. So, but in the interim, you've created this new
I've
beast,
been busy.
haven't you? Yeah.
Oh yeah. It is so Gray Matter, an acid horror anthology podcast. It is, in a lot of ways, it is me just kind of synthesizing all the things that I love into one thing and just kind of seeing how weird I can get with it.
Nice.
Basically, the way that I've been kind of pitching it is like, it's taking the kind of Carpenter and the kind of Cronenberg kind of aesthetic, and then putting that kind of backwards into the more formalist kind of structure of like Outer Limits or Twilight Zone, like any of the really classic horror anthologies. I mean, I love horror anthology as a form, but especially like Outer Limits is very much the one that I'm kind of basing the format kind of structurally on with this whole project.
Because I listened to one of the episodes the other day. I listened to your adaptation, because these are full cast audio adaptations, aren't they, essentially?
Yes.
Yeah, which is
so
really cool.
Every episode, it's like a hybrid form between like an audiobook and a full cast,
like
radio play. Because I like the, especially with a lot of weird fiction stories, some of which I'm adapting for episodes. I like the kind of overwritten, like the kind of Lovecraftian, like very purple prose. So I really wanted to maintain that in the narration, and then I wanted the scenes to be very much, live acted, very much get that emotion high, and kind of keep the weird stuff to the narration as much as possible, and see where the drama develops.
I got real sort of Rod Serling's Night Gallery vibes from it, sort of in the tone,
Right.
I've been watching a lot of that recently, because they did a lot of adaptations of various authors that I'm into. So I've been watching some of that recently, and I got real vibes of that going on. Also,
Night Gallery is one that's one that I haven't watched as much as like Twilight Zone and Outer Limits are the big ones for me from that era. But Night Gallery is one where every now and then I'll dip in and see an episode, and I'll be like, man, I really got to just sit down and watch all of Night Gallery.
Yeah, some great stuff.
One of the things that I miss about those old anthologies that I'm trying to kind of bring back with Gray Matter too is that like a very literary, like it's so smart, it's so well written. Like Richard Matheson was doing a ton of those. Like it's just the most like academic kind of vibe that you can have for horror, and I really appreciate that kind of horror that doesn't take its audience for granted and doesn't assume that because they like blood and gore that makes them idiots.
Yes, and I totally agree. With Night Gallery, there was adaptations of like Lovecraft's Cool Air and Pickman's Model and things like that.
Yes.
And the Clark Ashton Smith's Return of the Sorcerer and all that kind of stuff.
Right. Oh yeah. I gotta watch that
the other one, interesting, that was obviously you got Alfred Hitchcock Presents.
Yes.
Who also, in that, they actually did an adaptation of Ambrose Bierce's An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge.
Oh, right. Yes.
Yeah. So I thought that was a nice parallel. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Well, and it's interesting because like there are going to be stories that I will adapt in this that will be very classic stories from some of these authors, but I really wanted to kind of dig in and go to ones that either haven't had in my mind, a definitive adaptation, or ones where there's been enough adaptations that I feel like I can also try and do something different and interesting with it. Nice. So some of these are going to feel very overdone, and some of them will feel very underdone, where people are going to go like, wait, I didn't know that was even a thing. Like, what is this story? Who wrote this?
Yeah.
So hopefully that works and people will dig it.
Yeah, so you've got how many episodes have you got up so far?
So there's we just launched a couple of weeks ago, so our first 3 episodes are out. Episode 4 should be out relatively soon. I don't want to put an exact date on it, but it will be out this month, because basically for launch week we released the first 3 episodes, and then we're doing an episode a month going forward, forever. Basically, as long as I have ideas, we will keep this show going. Maybe we'll take a small hiatus or 2, but I wanted to have the feeling of when you went to Blockbuster and you like found something weird that you'd never heard of with weird cover art, and you were like, oh, cool, let's see what this is. Like I wanted to feel like a present once a month, where it's like, here's some crazy stuff. So the framing device for the show is basically each episode starts with a character that I call the clerk that I play, who's basically the horror host for the series. And basically each story is treated like it's a tape that in the fiction is a tape that was created using the organic material from somebody's brain at some point. Some horrible thing that happened to someone in either our dimension or an adjacent one in our metadimensional stack is how the clerk puts it.
Love it. Yep.
And so basically it's right off the bat, you've got that like very classic, like going into a video store, finding some weird ish kind of vibe, which is just
nice.
Like, who doesn't have some nostalgia for that? But it's just, there's something magical to it, to looking over the shelves and finding something with, like I said before, cover art where you're like, I have no idea what this is, but now I have to know what it is.
Yeah.
Like I've got to see this. I just can't. How can I not? Which we also have for anybody that goes to our website or listens to the show. Every episode thumbnail is going to be done as a VHS tape, as like a mock-up VHS tape with a poster drawn by a very talented artist named John Michael Marinell.
I wanted to mention that because I saw the covers and I was like, that looks like an old VHS tape.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I wanted that kind of like delivering a present to people. Like, I know what horror fans like because it's the stuff that I like. Mm-hmm. And to me, still, there's like companies like Arrow Video or Vestron or any of those little kind of boutique releases that are putting out like some obscure horror movie from the 70s, early 80s that nobody ever heard of, but they're putting it down in 4K scans with beautiful art for the thing. Like, that's the feeling that I want to capture as much as I can. Like, going into this, like I wanted that feeling more than anything else, is the feeling of discovery, of being like, I don't know what this is. It's probably going to be weird and shocking in some way. Hopefully it'll be emotionally affecting. Hopefully it'll be compelling, but you know, some crazy stuff will happen in almost every single one of these episodes.
Perfect. Right, yeah, we're just going to take a very short break. And carrying on with our movie theme rabbit hole, for want of a better term, I'm going to play you a song from the Saw 2 soundtrack. Now, say what you like about the Saw movies, whether they're your cup of tea or not, they had absolutely fantastic soundtracks. They were all compiled by Charlie Clouser, who'd worked with people such as Nine Inch Nails, and he did the actual scores, but the soundtracks were almost like a who's who of industrial rock of the time. Now, the second film features a remix of Skinny Puppy's Rodent from originally on their 1989 album Rabies. And this remix originally featured on their remix album Remix Distemper. The remix is by Kevin Hiwatt Marshall, and it's an absolute stomper. So yeah, enjoy.
Feeling
Okay, and now we're back. Yes. So you're the writer, director, anything else?
Producer, creator. Really, it's a one-man show over here. I mean,
Right.
we effectively have a crew of 4, which is me, my editor, Jeff, who I've worked with a bunch. He's fantastic, as evidenced by the quality of the show.
Yeah.
Then we also have John Michael Marinell doing the art, and we have Samantha Hunt doing the music. And effectively, that is the entire like behind-the-scenes crew of this show. Yeah. So every single episode, I introduce, I write, I direct, I do every little last bit of possible polish on these things before they go out the door. And it is, it's been very empowering to kind of just, not to have that power exactly, but to be like, I got to trust my sensibilities here. I know what I like. Let's just make it and see how good it ends up, you know?
Yeah, it's quite liberating, isn't it? Just to sort of go, right, well, it's all on me. If I cock it up, I cock it up, but I've got to have a go at it, you know?
Yes, if somebody doesn't like an episode, it's my fault, and that's fine. Like if I make a couple bad ones, that'll happen, but hopefully, hopefully I can keep it mostly good. I think I've got some bangers so far, so I can't really complain.
Yeah, well, it's all subjective as well, isn't it? Because, I mean, what some people might not like as much, other people might really like. Now, personally, this is, like I said just before we started, this has kind of shot me in the heart, this, because it's all kind of weird fiction, and the stuff that I'm into and the stuff that I write, it's all weird and cosmic and strange. And it's great.
Yeah, it's... well, you and I have talked before about weird fiction authors, like some of the kind of lesser known ones that you and I appreciate. Actually, I think the first time that we ever talked was over your story, The Yellow Protocol, which is a King in Yellow story.
Yes, it was, because we were both in an anthology, and you did the beta reading on it, didn't you?
Oh, I did. That's right. That was what, Full Metal Horror? That was
Full Metal Horror,
Horrors, right? Yeah, number 3, right? Yeah.
That was the one. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that was great. But yes, so like we very much share an appreciation for some of the lesser known weird fiction authors, because a lot of people just know like the Lovecraft or like I mean, it's tough because weird fiction spans such a broad group of authors. Like anything from Poe to the modern day can be in the weird, you know. And even before Poe, I'm sure there was a lot of crazy stuff written before that as well that we just don't count as part of the genre. But like, especially for me, authors like Ambrose Bierce or Nikolai Gogol is also someone that I adapted for the episode Circle of I that's also out right now. E.T.A. Hoffman is there will be an adaptation of that coming eventually. A lot of these, you know, I've got original stories in here as well. Yeah. But there will be adaptations of some really classic stories. I don't want to say too much, but for fans of The King in Yellow, there will be an episode coming up that will be quite pleasing to them.
Excellent. That's what I like to hear. Yeah.
It's going to be a good time.
Excellent. Yeah, because that's what I was going to ask you next. Obviously, you don't want to give too much away, but could you give us a sort of idea of what you've got coming up in the pipeline? Sort of thing?
So for this, for launch, the first 3, the first one, Room to Grow In, is based on a short story of mine.
Yep.
The second one, Ambrose Bierce. The third one, Nikolai Gogol. The next one coming up, I won't say what story, but I can say, I will hint saying it is adapted from an H.G. Wells
nice
piece.
Okay,
so
cool.
That one's also going to be fun because H.G. Wells has a lot of stuff that people know and a lot of stuff that people don't know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, and this one's kind of somewhere in between. So it's going to be interesting to see.
One I read the other day, which was one of his weird. It was in one of the British Library Tales of the Weird anthologies about deadly dimensions, and it's about like about a teacher that gets zapped into another dimension by some. It was really strange. Right. It was a great story. I can't remember what it was called now, but but it was a really good, story.
Have you read the new Accelerated from him? It's like a horror version of a story about the Flash. It's like a guy can go really fast and things go very poorly.
No, I haven't read that.
It's great. It's a weird little story. It's really good. So that's the next direct one, and I've got some back to some original stories for a couple of months, and then we'll pull out some adaptations as we go. But I really wanted to front load this with adaptations to kind of get that classical kind of anthology, lots of creators, lots of different energies, lots of different tones involved with this show.
Perfect. Perfect. Yeah. So just before we finish, how would you tell people how to find it? What's the website or whatever?
Right. So frankly, easiest way probably going to be to Google Gray Matter and Acid Horror Anthology podcast.
Yeah.
We have Facebook and Twitter. We have a TikTok, much to my chagrin.
No, I still
you
haven't
can pretty
got
much
on
find
that.
us wherever you find your podcasts.
Excellent. Yeah, well, I'll definitely be keeping an eye on it because, yeah, like I say, the one I've listened to was absolutely superb. It was great. So, yeah, thanks for coming on today, mate. And
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. And as always, I ask a guest to pick us a tune to lead out with. So, what have you got for us, mate?
Well, I am very excited about this, as you can tell, because I'm grinning like the Cheshire Cat over here. But so I would like "I'm Afraid of Americans" by David Bowie off the album Earthling from the 90s. 90s Bowie, we're doing it, we're committing.
Damn right. I'll absolutely love it. Yeah, great choice, mate. Thank you very much.
Johnny's in America, no takes at the wheel. No one needs anyone, they don't even just pretend. Johnny's in America. I'm afraid of America. I'm afraid of the world. I can't help it. I'm afraid I can't. I'm afraid of America. I'm afraid of the world. I'm afraid I can't help it. I'm afraid I can't. I'm afraid of America. Johnny's in America. Johnny wants a brain. Johnny wants to suck on a coke. Johnny wants a woman. Johnny wants to think of a joke. Johnny's in America. I'm afraid of America. I'm afraid of the world. I'm afraid I can't help it. I'm afraid I can't. I'm afraid of America. I'm afraid of the world. I'm afraid I can't help it. I'm afraid I can't. I'm afraid of America. Johnny's in America. Johnny looks up at the stars. Johnny combs his hair and Johnny wants pussy and cars. Johnny's in America. Johnny's in America. I'm afraid of America. I'm afraid of the world. I'm afraid I can't help it. I'm afraid I can't. I'm afraid of America. I'm afraid of the world. I'm afraid I can't help it. I'm afraid I can't. I'm afraid of America. God is in America. God is in America. I'm afraid of America. I'm afraid of the world. I'm afraid I can't help it. I'm afraid I can't. I'm afraid of America. I'm afraid of the world. I'm afraid I can't help it. I'm afraid I can't. Yeah, I'm afraid of America. I'm afraid of the world. I'm afraid I can't help it.
Splendid. That was David Bowie with I'm Afraid of Americans. Right, we're running out of time rapidly. We're going to have to say goodnight and pretty much wrap it up. Thanks again to my guests, Jonathan Inbody and Zoe Pheonix and Mr. Peach from Lesbian Bed Death. I'm Tim Mendes along with Septimus the Spider. And we'll see you next week, same time, same place on the Feel Good Station with more tunes and interviews and, you know, the usual shenanigans. What we're going to do now, we're going to leave you with one final classic from a horror movie. This one, this time around, is from The Return of the Living Dead Part 2. And it's by one of the most fun bands, one of my favourite bands of all time, which is Zodiac, Mind Warp and The Love Reaction. This is High Priest of Love. Good night.
To make you shout, well, you talk too much, button your lip. Just take a trip behind my zip. Well, come on, baby, I got a confession. You're the subject of my obsession. Come on, honey, worship me. I'm the god of fertility, and I'm a high priest of love. Yeah, baby, I'm the high. Yes, I am. Wow! Whatever love's what you want, baby, I got the stuff. My girlfriend tells me I got more than enough. That I'm more sexy than Jesus Christ. Well, that's concerning by my anarchist. Come on, honey, worship me. I'm a god of fertility. You ain't a virgin, honey, you ain't Madonna. Such a random, let me take you from this honor. I'm the high priest of love. Baby, I'm the high priest of love. Wow. What say you, Shakespeare? You don't believe in God, huh? Well, let me tell you something, sister.